blockading British ports. Protests by Welsh farmers against imports of cheap Irish beef spread last night, with demonstrations at Scottish and English ports. The farmers' anger has intensified following the government's decision to ban the sale of beef on the bone.
Early morning traders at Smithfield's market continued to sell beef on the bone, saying they'd received no official directive about the ban. Later, the Agriculture Minister Jack Cunningham confirmed that it was likely to be a week before the ban would formally come into effect.
95% of beef is already sold with the bones removed. We're talking about 5% of joints only, and the suggestion that somehow deboning that is going to devastate the industry is frankly gross exaggeration.
Meanwhile, protests by farmers against imports of cheap Irish beef continued at the port of Holyhead in North Wales. At Stranraer in Scotland, demonstrators succeeded in turning back 20 lorries. There were also protests in Liverpool. Later today, the Irish Agriculture Minister Joe Walsh will travel to London to meet Mr Cunningham, when it's expected he'll lodge a formal complaint about the continuing blockades.
The chairman of the Royal Opera House has just resigned following a report by the House of Commons Select Committee on Culture, which severely criticised the organisation's management. Lord Chadlington's resignation comes after the committee's report said there had been abysmal failures at Covent Garden. The Opera House, which has just undertaken an ambitious rebuilding programme, has been criticised for many months for poor financial management. Winnie Mandela, the former wife of the South African President Nelson Mandela, has been giving evidence to the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Under cross-examination, she denied allegations that either she or anyone staying in her house was involved in murder or assaults in the 1980s.
There isn't a single case here where a boy who was directly staying in my house was involved in rapes and was involved in this type of evidence which was led here. If that had been the case, I would have acted.
The Sinn Féin MPs Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness are meeting the Speaker of the House of Commons. They want her to change her ruling so that in future they'll be given access to the facilities at Westminster. Last May, Betty Boothroyd said they wouldn't be admitted to the Commons after the two MPs refused to take the oath of allegiance. Education action zones are to be set up in 25 areas as part of the government's plans to improve school standards, particularly for the disadvantaged. The proposals are one of the main elements of the School Standards Bill, which will be published later today. The government will also be given extra powers to deal with failing schools and local authorities. And that's it. The next news is the 1 o'clock news.
And the latest South-East headlines, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Paul Condon has called for the power of instant dismissal of corrupt officers. Sir Paul, giving evidence to the Commons Home Affairs Select Committee, says he believed between 100 and 250 Scotland Yard officers were corrupt. He added that the current police disciplinary procedures were totally inadequate for dealing with officers who committed crimes and called for them to be strengthened. Pentonville Prison in London has been strongly criticised in a report. Inspectors described the regime as impoverished and said inmates spent too much time in their cells. But the Governor says changes have been made since the jail was inspected in July. Farmers from across Oxfordshire will hold a mass meeting at Banbury Cattle Market today to discuss the latest crisis facing the meat industry. A recent government report says farmers' incomes are down by 37%. The situation's been compounded by the government's decision to ban the sale of beef on the bone. Football now, and Ray Harford is expected to be named as Queen Park Rangers' new manager today after resigning from West Bromwich Albion. Harford blamed difficulties of travelling from his Surrey home for his decision. Those are the latest headlines. Now catch up with the weather with Michael Fish.
Hello there, welcome to our daily look at the European scene, which remains pretty mixed to say the least, and it remains fairly chilly. A lot of this cloud across the middle part of Europe is giving some snow, and there's some thick cloud, you notice, giving some very unsettled weather across Spain. We have had thunderstorms across Greece, and we're now recently picking up thunderstorms across the northern part of Spain there, some in southern Spain, and there were some pretty nasty ones in the Algarve earlier on. It's low pressure everywhere. We've got low pressure moving through the Mediterranean up into Eastern Europe. We've got low pressure heading across the British Isles and into Scandinavia. But in between, things remain fairly quiet, and that's where the coldest weather's going to be. Temperatures not far off freezing, and some further flurries of snow and some night fog and frost, but milder weather sweeping across Britain into Scandinavia, and the Mediterranean continuing to have a mixture of sunshine and showers. To begin with, they're going to be in the more eastern areas, and then they're going to be starting to show up in the more western parts. Now back to the British Isles, 1 or 2 patches of fog still lurking across Northern Ireland. They may well linger, 1 or 2 showers in the southeastern corner of England. But for most of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, a dry and fairly bright afternoon. Cloud thickening across Scotland. Some rain coming into the north and west of Scotland later on, and that's heralding something of a change. But as far as temperatures are concerned, it is going to be another rather cold day just about everywhere. And then during this evening and tonight, we're going to find outbreaks of rain and strengthening winds pushing down across a good part of Scotland, eventually into the far north of Northern Ireland. But with light winds and clear skies further south, we are going to find another widespread frost, although temperatures lifting in the north, but a fairly sharp frost and some fog patches.
Hetty's wits are tested this week by a family secret.
She's a beautiful-looking girl. Bit toffee-nosed, I suppose.
She's being stalked. And the demands of a fake identity.
Good day, dearie.
G'day, mate.
You wouldn't by any chance be trying to extract the Michael, would you, Zoe?
Me? No.
Romance and mystery with an Australian flavour.
He was in love with you, you know.
He was in love with his career.
Hetty Wainthropp, tomorrow at 9:30 on BBC One.
Giving it their all in half an hour, today's teams on Give Us a Clue. First on BBC One, giving nothing away, The Bluffers with Bob Holness.
Hello again. Welcome to our regular war of words, involving 2 teams led by our 2 wordly wonders. One of them, Sandy Toksvig.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, I've got 2 rather snappy guests with me today. First of all, a man who can reduce the trash of the tabloids to succinct bon mots and has the finest line in snappy bow ties I've ever seen. Would you please welcome Peter Fiddick? Unfair to call my other guest a bit of an exhibitionist. In fact, his photographs are so good he has been exhibited all over the world. He's that happy snapper extraordinaire, Patrick Litchfield.
And our other team leader, working his metaphorical magic, Alan Corran.
No metaphors now, just the truth. On my left, a wonderful actress who's graced everything of any quality that's ever been on television. Here today, taking a welcome break from all that, would you welcome, please, Joanna David. And on my right, sporting as ever the short and curly hair which he so devastatingly grasps in all his many victims, welcome the world's greatest impressionist, Mr. Rory Bremner.
The rules? Certainly. Sandy's team will begin by defining a word 3 different ways. Only one definition is true, though. Alan and his team will try to work out which. Now, the first word today is Grenth, and it's Sandy.
Dermot Murnaghan and Julia Somerville.
Good afternoon, welcome to the programme.
Hello, the headlines this lunchtime. Confusion over the latest beef crisis as the government launches an official inquiry. What should the consumer do now? Winnie Mandela denies all as she faces South Africa's Truth Commission. The latest from Johannesburg. And meeting the homeless.